Welcome to a Seahawks Draft Blog live stream, instant reaction stream here. Rob Staton, Robbie Williams, Adam Nathan has joined us as well to discuss the Seahawks defeat in Minnesota. And fellas, that is one of the worst performances in the Pete Carroll era. That is up there for me with any of the bad results you've seen in the past. I think it's possibly on a par, and you tell me if I'm over exaggerating with this, on a par with the Rams loss at the end of 2017, because what you had at the end of 2017 was, the end of an era. You were feeling that there were players that were going to retire. There were so many injuries. There were so many issues with that team. Bobby Wagner was playing basically on one leg. The Seahawks were in no fit shape whatsoever to play the Rams that day, and we're on the brink of major changes. So that result, to an extent, against an on-fire Rams team, an upstart Rams team, was somewhat understandable. There's no excuses like that today. This is a Seahawks team that is supposed to be competitive, that is supposed to be a contender, that has had money and resource plowed into it. We've heard so much about this team, and they go and play like that. And there are so many things we need to discuss with regards to how bad that performance was. But frankly, that's a shambles. And I've written on the blog that there are two major things that need to happen now. Ken Norton Jr. needs to be replaced as defensive coordinator. Pete Carroll said the bench is an ally this week and threatened change if players didn't do what they needed to do, and suggested there were consequences to bad performances and bad decisions. Well, there needs to be a consequence now, because for the last 3 years, this defense has not been good enough, far from it. And there needs to be a consequence now, and there needs to be a change. And even if it means doing something ridiculous, like going and getting Greg Williams. I don't know. I'm throwing that net. I'm not saying I want Greg Williams. I'm just saying he's out there. And Jamal Adams has played well under Greg Williams. Listen, I don't think there's any chance of Greg Williams ending up in Seattle. But I'm just saying they need to go and find somebody now who can be the defensive coordinator. Even if there's somebody on the staff who has to take over from Ken Norton, just to show that you mean business, that has to happen now. And fellas, from next season, because I'm telling you now, that ain't a team that is going to be competing for the Super Bowl this year. So when the inevitable happens and this season eventually does end, there needs to be a bigger change for 2022. The Pete Carroll era, we are seeing the beginning of the end. And there needs to be a bigger change for next season. And that means a new head coach. Not a knee-jerk reaction. It's something that we've talked about on streams and in articles previously. But for me, that's where I am at right now. Robbie, give us your general thoughts.
The defense is soft. Ken Norton needs to go. That's just pissed off, man. I mean, you're right. There's so many things. How is Trey Flowers still starting on this team? The fact of the matter, they keep throwing him out there every week, and he's just giving up yard after yard after yard, play after play after play, and they keep putting him out there. It just shows that we're not in a good position with this team right now. Like, they're not making good decisions. We're in trouble going forward. I mean, it's not going to get any easier. We come out and we look hot, we look good. We look, the defense, I know that they don't play well, but the offense comes out, they score some points. You're thinking, okay, well, the offense can keep this up, but then they just go quiet in the second half. And this has been the third game in a row now. And what happens? Our corners are nowhere near good enough. We had no pass rush today that could help. And I know we had some injuries, but none of that should be an excuse. If you're going to trade 2 first-round picks, a third, and a player for Jamal Adams and pay him $17.5 million a year and calling him this incredible blitzer, and he's getting no pressure at all. I mean, you can see his blitz is coming. You can see every blitz that he's coming up to the line to do. They don't disguise it. Nothing about this defense surprises me. Nothing about this defense makes me think that we have any chance of winning the game. I don't trust the defense. I'm not trying to put it all on the offense or all on the defense. I know there's some issues on the offensive side of the ball, but right now I'm just absolutely just embarrassed by the way we played, the way we game plan, and how we don't have any sort of in-game adjustment when a team just comes out and starts settling into their own. They settle into the game. They start picking us apart. There's passes underneath. There's runs to the right. There's runs to the left. There's screen passes. They're just taking it to us every single time. So at this point, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm over it. Like we have a, if it keeps going down this road and we keep losing a bunch of games, it's not even like we have a high pick that we're going to get to enjoy next year. It's gone. No. We gave it up for Adams. Tell me, is that worth it?
Well, I'm
Is it
sure
worth
we'll come on. I'm sure we'll come on to Jamal Adams at some point. He needs to be discussed today. And just a reminder that if you want to join in, you can do on the live chat. We'll try and get some questions and some stuff done between the end now and the end of this. If you want a super chat, we'll come to those immediately. They will get priority. Listen, do crazy things when a loss is ongoing. Like, maybe you'll feel better if you do a super chat and support the channel. As an example of something that I was doing to make myself feel better during that game, I was joining in with a da-da every time Minnesota got a first down, which was several hundred times during that game, or made a big play. And then, the Fox music, da-da-da, 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 da-da. I was singing along to that, but with swear words, one of which is 4 letters and begins with W. British listeners may be able to work out what that word was during the theme music. And maybe you want to join along with that, not you two on the stream, but people at home, to make you feel better about this loss. And the offense, Robbie, you're certainly right, has something to blame as well. The Seahawks were shut out in the second half, completely shut out. And the defense was a shambles, but being shut out, DK Metcalf having like 85 yards in what felt like the first 2 minutes of the game, and then just completely not finding a way to get him the ball. Russell Wilson's performance has been awful in 3 out of 3 games in the second half so far. There are so many things we need to get into. Adam, I want to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts, though, in the immediate aftermath of that.
Well, I think they've clearly absolutely broken you for finally, Rob. That they've done you. If you're doing the Viking horn and the Fox music in an empty room, I think we can safely say that the Seahawks have well and truly broken Rob Staton. So R.I.P. We go again. What I would say is we've all suffered some horrendous losses in the past. Buffalo last year, that Rams game that you point to, but the biggest worry for me was I think those games, there were a lot of plays that flipped the field that, I think Pharaoh Cooper or whatever went mad in special teams and Todd Gurley was running for 70 yards at a clip and there were loads of turnovers. Whereas this was a game where it was fairly clean in the sense that there were no turnovers. There was nothing that flipped the field. We just got manhandled and, we didn't give up any short fields. It was just a case of, they were better than us at almost anything we wanted to do. And I just looked at a stat that I think Carlos Dunlap had the only defended pass in the game, and we've successfully defended 5 passes all season. That's...
Wow. What a stat there. That is an amazing stat.
That's insane. But the worst part is that we probably knew it was going to happen because we did hundreds of hours of podcasts on your show, my show, whatever show, that we knew this was going to happen. And it's yeah, of course it's happening because we knew it. So I almost find it that a bit tricky to be that despondent because everything that we thought would happen has happened. And sorry.
Yes. Correct. And this is the, part of the issue, I think, really is for a lot of us. We anticipated some of the issues forthcoming. I'm not sure that I ever expected to be quite as bad as this. That was a really, really awful performance. It's a soul-destroying performance because Minnesota just dominated every aspect. Every time they drop back, what exactly is the scheme? Pete Carroll has gone away this offseason and has come up with a scheme which is heavily dependent, I think, on let's make the most of our major investment in Jamal Adams, using this bare front, which originally was put into place to take advantage of an aggressive safety who can attack and blitz and do all of those things. So we've shifted towards that a little bit. And they've changed up the pass rush alignment, maybe having 2 sort of outside linebackers, 3 defensive tackles. They've gone through all that. But what are we actually seeing here? There's so much space underneath, isn't there? There's always an easy pass for the quarterback underneath. Whenever there's a blitz, there's an easy check down. Their screen defending the screen game today. Everybody knows that Minnesota loved to throw screens. There was absolutely no answer to that whatsoever. Every time the ball was thrown to, admittedly, 2 really good receivers in Jefferson and Thielen, they were wide open. They were either given so much of a cushion or they got away from Flowers or Reed with absolute ease. I have absolutely no what Jamal Adams is doing. What exactly is the plan with Jamal Adams, either from the team and the way that they're utilizing him, or Jamal Adams in terms of how he's going about trying to create an impact? A couple of plays, for example, on the Thielen's touchdown in the first half, where he's just come flying out of nowhere and whiffed on a tackle. Then a few plays later, he he kind of blitzes. I think he's making a decision and he's kind of caught in two minds and he blitzes. Essentially just makes contact with a blocker and just, it was almost as if he decided, well, I've done my job now. I've made contact. I've gone in. He didn't have a counter move. He wasn't trying to get open. He wasn't trying to get away from the blocker. He kind of just, high-fived him a bit, checked he was okay. In the meantime, he's out of coverage then, and it was a pretty easy throw into the secondary to get there. And then he and, Quandre Diggs a few drives later or a couple of drives later are shouting at Cody Barton because he's not doing the right thing because, of course, Cody Barton's coming for Jordan Brooks, who's been benched again because presumably he's not doing the right things. But, who really needs to see any more of Cody Barton at this stage? By the way, you're going to see a lot more of him now because Jordan Brooks is injured. So just everything about the performance. The pass rush isn't good enough. People have been waxing lyrical about how this is the best depth since 2013. This is the best D-line and pass rush since 2013. Where's there any evidence of that? They've completely whiffed on the cornerback position, haven't they? They've not addressed that. And this is just the defense, guys. We can talk about the offense, the lack of anything in the second half in 3 games now. Even the Colts game, they really stalled in the second half. It seems like they have their set plays. They kind of come up with a game plan. It works very early on. And then when the other team adjusts and adapts and makes those changes that they make, they have no answers on offense. And it just creates a really bad team. The Seahawks look like a bad team, Robbie. This is not a couple of off days. They look bad.
Yeah, we look like the 4th best team in the NFC West, which is sad. This is the way we've been playing the last 3 games. Even in the Colts game, we disappeared there in that third quarter, and I think we came away with that pretty excited though with the win, and with maybe some more high expectations with how this team could play, and if that defensive line could have gotten after the quarterback like it did the first week, but it just seemed to disappear. Maybe we were all pretty excited about maybe the way the offense was playing as well. But, Russ looks out of sorts too. He doesn't look like he just doesn't, he was off on some throws and now I'm questioning, Shane Waldron's decision on some plays that the 3rd and 19, you see other teams attack us and try to go get those 19s. Instead we throw a screen pass to Travis Homer and we get 6 yards. It won't do us any good. That's just a give up. You might as well just hand the ball off to the fullback, Mike Holmgren style, in a fullback draw. It's pointless. It doesn't do us any good. And maybe you get lucky and break free every once in a while, but I'm not seeing that happen here. And how easy was that 3rd and 9 pass? We needed to stop and we're playing 12 yards off the line and here you are, 3rd and 9. And next thing you know, quick out from Justin Jefferson. He gets 11 yards on that play, and all of a sudden it's a first down. I kind of like what Sean said here earlier. He said there's zero identity on either side of the ball. Nobody on either side of the ball scared you. If we and I'm not trying to take anything away from us. If we don't have Russell Wilson, we're a shit team. Absolute garbage. I don't care who Russell Wilson is saving us so far, but we're 1-2. And I don't think he can. I don't have confidence he's going to be able to carry us much further. This is just how bad our team is. There's no one that sets the identity of the team. There's no Cam. I would love for them to go out and get Sherman right now because Trey Flowers sucks. He sucks. And we need something different. Bring Sherman in. I don't care how good he is. Help him. Maybe he has some sort of mentality that he can help fire up the defense and get him going, do something. But we need to make some changes. Ken Norton needs to go. Bring someone in like Sherman. Go get somebody. Go get Geno Atkins. He's still out there. Why not? Clearly we need help on the D line as well. Go get some players to try to infuse some energy into this team and help us flip and win the game. I'm getting tired of watching us go out there and just piss it away and play like crap. And then seeing this look from Pete where it's I don't understand. Well, no, go do something. Go do something about it. Your team is not, these players aren't good enough. Sorry, I'm getting a little fired up. Calm down. Robert, somebody else talk.
Be fired up, man. Be fired up. We've got a lot of people with us tonight, and I think they want to see us fired up. They want to hear us talk about it. I've seen this from Curtis Allen, and by the way, Kerry, huge supporter of the channel. Kerry, thank you again for your super chat. Much appreciated. Send them in. Curtis has posted this. I have not seen the Pete Carroll post game thing. I think it's been ongoing while we've been talking, but this is what Curtis has put. Pete was asked what happened in the second half and said they didn't do anything different. We didn't do anything different. Adam, this is part of the issue, isn't it? And listen, no disrespect to Pete Carroll. I think sometimes people mistake wanting a change with hatred or dislike. And I don't dislike or hate Pete Carroll. I just want to see a different approach now. You know, things have a sell-by date on them, and we're past that point now. We're seeing the same issues year after year after year, the same season year after year after year. Things are getting worse. And when I see a thing like that, you know, I want to see a coach stand up to the plate and go, "That is not good enough. We need to be better." And saying they didn't do anything differently. Well, you did do things differently, didn't you? Because you didn't score a point in the second half. And they had, I think, 144 yards in the third quarter, and you had 7. So, and maybe you needed to do things differently, Adam. If you're saying you didn't do anything differently in the second half, you didn't lay a finger on them on defense in the first half. I mean, this is just not good enough. The Seahawks, they've long been a team that relies on a collection of individuals, mainly Russell Wilson, to get by. And it's time to become a team where the coaching staff are actually an asset in the sense of in-game management, adjustments, and decision-making, and finding those little moments. And while I'm just because this thought's popped into my head, because I've just seen something about the Rams. Rams just hammered the Super Bowl champions today, unbeaten. Arizona, unbeaten. San Francisco, playing the powder puff Green Bay Packers in a bit, and they always give them a good kicking, don't they? They could be unbeaten as well. Seahawks are 1-2. They're going to finish last in the division if something doesn't change pronto. And you're saying, Robbie, they could go and bring somebody. They've got $10 million to spend. It's not as if they've got $1 million. They've got $10 million in cap space. Might not be able to use all of that, but do something. Because the season is just, it's evaporating. And increasingly, those fans who are inclined to push back on what we were talking about over the last 18 months, they've had enough too, Adam.
Well, I think when you say do things differently, I mean, you have to forgive me for not looking at maybe some micro moments from this game in particular, although I will pick up on a couple of plays. But the whole offseason was sold on Shane Waldron's coming in, and hopefully the offense as a result is going to be different. You know, Eskridge picked 2nd round when there are huge holes on the roster. I mean, that suggested something's going to be different. Gerald Everett's coming across, different. And then I watched the game today, and there's a dump off to Travis Homer on 3rd and 19, which is never going to get you a first down. And they punted in the 4th quarter, 10 points down with about 8 minutes to go. And I think Greg Bell said, look, they had to punt because, you know, with the way the defense are playing, they won't get a stop. Well, they're not going to get a stop anyway, but you're just going to take 3 minutes off the clock. So you might as well give it a go. And I think the whole point that we were sold on an idea of there would be a difference. But really, when you look at some of those motifs that have come out of the game, it's still Pete Carroll running the show. Because like you can't tell me that a mind as seemingly creative as Shane Waldron is dumping it off to Travis Homer on 3rd and 19 and wanting to punt. I mean, Brandon Staley, I'm not sure if you watched the Chargers game. He was throwing on 4th and 9 to win the game today when they could have, you know, kicked the field goal and probably been safe. I mean, that's different. But unfortunately, you know, what the Seahawks look like they've done is they've, you know, changed a couple of the blinds and the curtains, but it's the same old house at the minute, offensively, by the looks of things. And that for me is the biggest worry. And that was the worry going into the year that would ultimately lead to the continued fissures between Wilson and Carroll that we said this. We were going to keep our receipts because when he gets traded next summer, we're going to keep our receipts. And yeah, you heard the first murmurings. Robbie wrote a great piece about it on Thursday or Friday after the press conference, little tete-a-tete that they had. And ultimately, like, yeah, difference. I mean, I wish we had it because at the moment it just looks like the same old S that's just been repackaged with a slightly different, younger model, unfortunately.
Well, let's just look. Let me ask you guys: can you imagine any situation whereby a Carroll-led Seahawks at this stage turns things around? Because they've done the rebuild, they've done the reset, they've spent the resources, they've invested, they've built the team. You know, the reset started at the end of the 2017 season. It's now 2021. They've had years and drafts and cap space to use and craft a team. What are we saying here? That if this season carries on this trajectory, and let's say the Seahawks either just miss out on the playoffs or somehow scrape in as, you know, as a 4-team NFC West combo makes it into the playoffs, because at the moment they're behind the 8 ball in the division. does Carroll get another 3 years to rebuild this? I mean, why should anybody invest any faith in that? I know he signed a 5-year contract, but why should anybody believe that if this goes the way that it's going, that Pete Carroll, working in tandem with John Schneider, should get the chance to either reshape the roster again or should be allowed to just carry on business as usual, have another go next year? And I don't think Russell Wilson will allow him to do that. And listen, Russell Wilson is not, the problem is in these discussions is that people start to go, you mentioned that Russell will have Russell Wilson's feelings, and people immediately go, well, he can't complain. He wasn't very good either. He's not been playing well. And that's true. Russell Wilson, despite the stats, has not played well in the second half of 3 games so far and bears some responsibility. But everybody does. I mean, this is it. The whole team at the moment looks broken. You can run through so many things, but I think there has to be a change, guys. There has to be. This has to be the final dance now for Pete Carroll. And I'm looking at his body language. To me, he doesn't look like he's enjoying himself. I mean, that is the first time I think I'm saying that as well. He celebrates and he looked fired up when Carson scored his long touchdown run. But by the end, again, he's just looking like he'd rather be anywhere else right now. He looks to me like a man who is suddenly realizing, why the hell am I still doing this at the age of 70? And I don't think he wants to persevere this and become persona non grata in Seattle where everybody's wanting him to go. And that's going to start. You're going to start hearing that noise now. Fans are going to start going, people will have heard, and Robbie, you will have heard Adam and I speaking to the Arsene Wenger comparison in Arsenal. And American viewers may not know what that was like, but you have a legendary coach, and then you have the whole fan base split, and then increasingly more and more people. Then you see banners come into the ground saying, "So Wenger out." And does anyone want to see somebody holding up a sign at a game saying "Fire Carroll"? Do people want to actually see that? Because nobody wants to see that, and I think he will if it carries on this way. Just go, look, had a great run. It's time. It's time for somebody else to have a go. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, look, and also watching some of these other games today, the Jets, for example, with Zach Wilson, the Patriots with Matt Jones, the Bears with Justin Fields, who looks horrendous. Admittedly, O-line's no good in Chicago, but still, Trevor Lawrence is struggling, the golden child. I'm thinking it's much easier to replace a coach than a quarterback. I'm not going to accept them trading Russell Wilson and giving Pete Carroll another rebuild in the offseason. I want to see them give it a try. Russell Wilson, an offensive-minded head coach. My preference is someone like Joe Brady, who's making Sam Darnold look really good at the minute, with a really experienced specialist defensive coordinator who's maybe had head coaching experience. I'm thinking like an equivalent to someone like Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay. Somebody who can come in and run that unit, find details, adjustments, get the best of the assets that you've invested in. That's what I want to see from 2022. I don't see any other way forward. That thought is going to get me through what is looking like a pretty awful season.
Yeah, I mean, and I heard Pete Carroll say it was this week that they were like, we still haven't figured out how to, utilize Jamal Adams' talents. That right there tells me they don't know what the hell they're doing. They traded for him. They've had him for a year now, and they're in year 2, and you still haven't figured out how to use him. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. You are out of sorts. You're out of sync. You don't know what's going on. And I think this is just Pete thinking that he can coach his guys up to be what he wants them to do. And I'm just going to go ahead and comment on this guy because he keeps saying it. Jamal Adams is the most overhyped Seahawks since Brian Ballard. Got it. I've seen that like 12 times. I mean, and I think you're possibly right. I mean, I don't know. I remember the hype around Aaron Curry, but we'll step away from that one right now. But yeah, I just feel like they don't know what they're doing. And I hope you're right. I would choose Russ over Pete at this point. I mean, it's way harder to replace the quarterback. I think we could bring in an offensive-minded coach that would love to work with Russell Wilson, and we have an opportunity to really make a change. And we could blow the whole thing up, but we don't have a first-round pick. We traded it for Jamal Adams. I mean, unless we blow it up and trade Russ and get a couple first-round picks, we're not really in that boat. And this year, not a good draft class for quarterbacks. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
Not a good class for quarterbacks at all. I've just seen this tweet from Bob Condota. Seattle has been outgunned 224 to 42 in the second half so far. Incredible. adjustments are so important in this league. That has to come down to coaching to an extent. It really has to. Yeah, the players have got to execute as well, but you can't have that. Big thank you to Kyle for the super chat. Kyle R, thank you. Thank you, sir. I hope the stream tonight is helping people just provide a bit of something off the back of that horrendous performance. Adam, your thoughts on what we've been talking about there, but also this Jamal Adams trade it's just a disaster, isn't it? The amount that they've paid in picks and the resource that they're now tied to for years, it's an absolute disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, unfortunately, the contract was an inevitability after the trade happened. You know, we all said on plenty of times, you know, maybe try and shift him so you can get back. But in all intents and purposes, that was never going to happen. The strangest part for me is that they spent last year, you know, I'm seeing someone that's linked all of the other trades that we've made, you know, Jimmy Graham, Percy Harvin, Jadeveon Clowney, even Sheldon Richardson. There's so many players they've traded for in the past and not really let them do what they can do and really utilize their strengths. I mean, hell, Jimmy Graham, they were asking to block after year 3, still not realizing that you couldn't do that for, you know, for anything. And they in fairness to them, they let Jamal Adams cook last year, for want of a better, awful, horrific expression. And they've now paid him and almost want to say, no, now we can turn you into a real safety in inverted commas. And he's now just like a bang average, strong safety, not getting sacks. Like at least last year, you could say, well, look, 10.5 sacks. Yeah, that's pretty good. You know, the coverage isn't great and we do have to scheme differently for him. But at the minute, it just sort of seems like it's 18 million for what Ryan Neal could do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just not good. And no, people are saying in the live chat, Todd Bowles isn't going to leave Tampa Bay, or Tampa Bay's defense. I wasn't saying they should go and appoint Todd Bowles. I was saying they should get their equivalent. You know, somebody who has been a head coach, who has done a good job with the defense. You know, can do a good job as a defensive coordinator. And look, maybe Bowles had a horror show today, but just a reminder that he was the defensive coordinator of the Super Bowl champions last season. So, and their defense was pretty good at the end of the year in the playoffs. So, yeah, I just, for me, the Adams thing, the problem with the Adams, when I look at it, guys, is when he was having success last season, it was when they were blitzing him 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game, putting Bobby Wagner up in the A gap, letting him have a free run to the quarterback. If you are noticing, what are his blitzers like now? I'm not going to try for a second to suggest that I'm some X's and O's type who can break down exactly what a defense is doing there. That's not me. I've never tried to be that person and never will be. So my layman's opinion on what I think I'm seeing here is that rather than have Jamal Adams lined up essentially off the edge with the linebacker in the A gap, and then Wagner draws the coverage and Adams screams off the edge, what seems to be happening now is Adams either has the freedom to sort of read the offense and then make a run for it, essentially, if he sees sort of certain triggers with what the offense are doing, or he's rushing from deeper and trying to rush later, maybe trying to disguise those blitzers. And it just isn't working. And why should we be surprised? Pete Carroll and Ken Norton's history as coaches, as far as I'm aware, is not steeped in blitzing, is it? It's always been steeped in front four pressure, or, you know, when Carroll maybe used different kind of schemes at USC or whatever, it's always been about that front pressure and everybody plays on the back end, run to the ball, fly to the ball, turnovers and stuff like that. And now that they've brought in a player who almost needs to be creatively blitzed like he was in New York, and you need to have a defined role for him. And they don't have that. They just don't have that to hand. And he's just not very good, is he? You know, when you're watching him, you're just thinking he's not doing anything in this defense. He's very good at applauding after a completion, or, you know, saying well done to an opponent, or shouting at somebody, or, you know, arsing about on the sideline. But his impact is non-existent. And when you spend as much as you have on him, you expect impact, and they're just not getting that. But he's far from the only problem. It comes at the top. It's Ken Norton, it's Pete Carroll, it's their defense. This pass rush isn't getting home. The coverage. I mean, surely they've got to try. You've just got to mix it up, haven't you? Now you've got to try and play a bit more man. You've got to get up into the receivers and and run the risk of a flag, and you've got to be a bit more physical with them, because what they're doing right now, it isn't working. It's just so easy for quarterbacks to complete passes, and it's not going to get any easier against Kyle Shanahan, is it? It's not going to get any easier against McVay. And they may find it's quite fortunate that they're playing the Steelers after that, because Big Ben looks like he might retire before they play, because he's that bad. And if he doesn't retire, you'll be playing a Big Ben who should have retired. So maybe that'll be their next win. But by that point, they could be 1-4 very easily and way behind the division. And what then? It just feels to me, Robbie, like this is a big week for a number of reasons. How Carroll and Wilson, because Adam, you touched on it, the Wilson noise is going to grow again now. People are going to say, well, what now? Because the way this is going, this is worse than it was last year. Wilson was considering a trade this offseason. What's he going to do? That noise is going to pick up. How Carroll specifically answers questions, and also the media have got to ask some questions now. The media have got to go out there. They've had it pretty easy for what, 12, 11 and a bit seasons with Pete Carroll, in that they've had a lot of success. A lot of things have gone well. You can rock up there, can have a good laugh because DK Metcalf has challenged one of the writers to a 100-meter race. You can then ask Quandre Diggs about it. You can then ask Shane Waldron about it. We can all have Jolly Japes in the press conference. No, that has to stop this week, I'm afraid. It's time to go and ask some questions. What are you going to do about this? Have you thought about making a change at defensive coordinator? Somebody asked in the comments, is there any precedent for changing a defensive coordinator midseason? Coordinators change midseason fairly often. Greg Roman's under a lot of pressure in Baltimore, for example, as defensive coordinator there. So yes, coordinators do change during a season. Head coaches tend to not, unless you fire a coach and bring somebody else in. That's not going to happen with the ownership in Seattle. So what are you going to do? Is Ken Norton under any issue? If not, why not? Do you think this is spiraling out? I don't know what the questions are right off the top of my head right now, but you've got a day till Carroll will speak on the Mike Salk show if you're Mike Salk, and you've got a day if you are the reporters who are then going to speak to him after that. It's time for some serious, probing, difficult questions, not just of the coach, but of the players this week as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that it's week 4 and we're already talking about a must-win game. Like you have to win. I mean, looking at the rest of the NFC West, and you're talking about teams that are undefeated, and we haven't even got to play any of these teams yet. And these teams they just look a hell of a lot better than we do right now. And there needs to be some accountability and needs to be some changes. And Ken Norton's at the top of the list. He should be let go. I like somebody, I don't remember who said it, but like, we don't even need a different defensive coordinator. Let Pete do it. Put his money where his mouth is and let him do it. Let him be the defensive coordinator. I thought that was excellent. I think that's a great idea. Ken Norton is not the guy. I don't think Pete's the guy to run the defense either, but like, let's see him try it, or, whatever. But there needs to be some sort of accountability, and they need to go forward and bring in some guys to challenge some of these guys who are just getting to play, because Pete has a feeling that they can. Like Trey Flowers, again. Like, I don't care who you bring in. There should be no reason why Sidney Jones hasn't played yet. Like, I don't care what the reasoning is. He can't be any worse than Trey Flowers unless he's hurt or something. I don't understand. But this whole defensive side of the ball has been super frustrating to watch. And the noise for Russ is going to get louder and louder. Does Jody Alley even care? Probably not, to be honest with you, Frank. I don't think she does care.
What about this, guys? What about this? What is keeping Sidney Jones on the bench? Pete Carroll, not much. Wanted to get him in today, couldn't get it done.
He couldn't get it done. Doesn't make any sense.
Certainly managed to get Cody Barton in place of your first-round pick from 2020. Couldn't get it done. Adam.
Guys, I mean, obviously we can talk about coordinators and Pete Carroll and cap room and what can they do now, but there's a lot of me that kind of thinks the defense is what we're stuck with now. And from a personnel perspective, we went into the year, and I know you mentioned at the start, Rob, that people said, the depth on the defensive line, but it kind of feels like they say, well, as long as you've got 8 human beings, that's depth. So we could be 3 of them because that's depth, because we can rotate in and out. But if we're not very good, it sort of feel like it's going to defeat the purpose. And I kind of feel like Rob, you remember this, those monks in the Stella Artois advert that are on the sheet of ice. That the problem with the Seahawks defense, that sheet of ice that you were walking on used to be rock solid all over the place, but now cornerback, linebacker, defensive line, you just don't know where that ice is going to give way underneath you. And I kind of feel that we could bring in Richard Sherman, we could bring in Geno Atkins, but really, I just don't think there's going to be enough quality to take you through what's going to be a
don't you
hell
just
of a
want to
season.
see something though? I mean, even I agree with you completely.
I want to see something,
but
does
something
point,
have to be done just because it has to. I mean, you can't just carry on, can you? Just going along like this.
You have to do something, but ultimately, to what end? And I know that's a terribly depressing way to put it, but I sort of feel like we've got what we've got, and we're probably going to be knackered as a result of, once again, poor construction, but with a ridiculous amount of investment on the defensive. We can talk about the offense all we want, but what's the offense got? Maybe one first round and a couple of third round picks on it at the minute. I mean, that defense has got everything. All your investment is there, and they're rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about last year, though, too, I mean, what was the first 3 or 4 games, we had the worst defense in the league, and then we brought in Carlos Dunlap, and all of a sudden a light switch changed, we got a little better. So I think a little, like any sort of, fresh blood to come in, help us out a little bit, might help turn this defense around. I mean, we've got good players, they have opportunities. I think the corner position obviously just completely sucks. We need a complete revamp there, but I think we can do something to help improve this team. If we're going to see, I don't want them to go out there and see this crap that Pete just said. Well, we wanted to get him in, but just couldn't find a way to do it. Like, I don't want to see that. Get these guys in, let them up. If it's all about competing, let them actually compete for playing time, and let's see him play.
Yeah, I think it's true though, because anything else is just going to be, it's going to be like shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. I like that phrase, and that is kind of what it is like, isn't it? Essentially. Bring in an old, favorite, bring in a new defensive coordinator. You are right, Adam. I still think something needs to be done. I think a change is required just to show that you're not complacent and listening to some of this stuff. I think Carlos Dunlap has been on the podium and he's gone, oh, well, we can be better than this. We've just got to go and do it. It's like, well, I don't want to hear any stuff like this. I want to hear somebody fired up. I want to hear somebody go, that was not acceptable. We have to be better than this, and that starts now. And I'm going to make sure it's better. And look, words are cheap, but sometimes fans need to hear that kind of thing. Fans, if you just come out constantly and you never say anything that gives the impression that you understand or appreciate just how bad things have gotten, then I just feel like you're going to make things worse for yourself, and that's where we are. And some serious changes are needed in the offseason. And I think the thing I worry about, guys, is I think we're just going to be talking about this so much that it's almost going to become a bit tiresome. That sort of 6 weeks in, just another week closer to the end and stuff like that. How would you feel if Pete Carroll said at some point, maybe in the next 3 weeks, this is my last season? And then essentially it was official. I'm retiring at the end of the season. Would it make it any more palatable, any more enjoyable to think it's one last hurrah with Pete, knowing that at least at the end of the season that change is coming, or would that potentially just make things worse and the season spirals out of control, and then you end up with like a 5-12 record or something? I don't know. I don't think it'd get as bad as that, but what do you think?
I mean, I think if Pete came out and said that, you'd give you something to look forward to next year, right? Right now, as we're looking, I mean, if we keep going down this path, what are we looking forward to? We're looking at, another offseason of Russ talking about trades and what's going to happen. Is Pete going to still be here? Then we're also looking at, well, we don't have a first round pick and we just blew this season. How we're going to get that draft capital back. There's those things looking at, going forward. I think if Pete was going to be retired, you could say like, hey, at least it gives us something to look forward to, some fresh blood coming in, some new changes. I think it'd be helpful.
Can I ask you then, do you think, just, all right, it's very early and people may well be screaming, it's too early to talk about this, but if you watch that game today and think the Seahawks are going to suddenly turn it around and be Super Bowl contenders down the line, then, I have some magic beans to sell you. Do you think that Carroll, if this ends up being the kind of season that we kind of anticipate it will be, do you think he will go? you think he will resign? Because I don't think the ownership will fire him. So do you think that there will be? Do you think he would go? Do you think he would try and keep things just ticking along again for another year and another off season of the trade Wilson? I mean, what do you expect to happen right now as we're speaking in reaction to what we've just seen in this specific game?
Well, after they missed the playoffs in 2017, I mean, he went on a spree through his coaching staff that was like, the end of The Godfather 1, Michael Corleone, just sort of whacking everyone in sight and clearing house to set the table for the next run. And there's part of me that wonders if he might think, well, I've got 4 years left on my contract. The owner isn't going to fire me because she probably is just, happy for me to run the team as I have been doing. So I might just see if I can maybe I can get Schneider out. Maybe I can whack a few more coaches and go again, have one more push with me. I mean, Rob, you're wincing, and I'm wincing internally even thinking it, but I don't know. I mean, Carroll is a man that is so proud. And so, I mean, part of what he does, the reason he carries himself, I mean, he's almost a bit Emperor's New Clothes in the sense that he can talk himself into believing almost anything, which is an asset as much as it is a fault, I would say. So there's part of me that just thinks he might just try and do it again and, take even more control, because he probably has so much faith in what he's doing, rightly or wrongly, that I don't know. I mean, for me, it's a different conversation if Paul Allen is still around.
Oh, yeah. I think the one thing, and Robbie, I want you to answer this as well. The only thing that makes me think, and I wrote about it in the week, was that in 2017, once they had that Rams loss and they were going to make the big reset, Jay Glazer, and again, I said this with Jeff the other day, Jay Glazer doesn't generally speculate about stuff. He's not in the agents have told me this, I'm going to put it out there type of stuff that even the Schefters and the Rappaports do. He generally reports stuff that is true, and you can kind of take it to the bank if Jay Glazer reports it. And he touted, just something out of nowhere, Pete Carroll might retire, by the way. Pete Carroll might retire. He's going to decide whether he wants to retire or not at the end of this season. And Pete said he wasn't going to retire, and Albert Breer was saying there was something in it. And if he was considering retiring because he was wondering whether or not he wants to go through a big reset in the start of 2018, I'm wondering 3 years on whether he thinks, yeah, do you know what? I've had a go. I gave myself that chance for the reset and it hasn't really worked. I am going to move. And that's why I'm convinced if this season continues on this trajectory that Pete Carroll will retire. I am convinced. The only thing that will change that, I think, is if they really right the ship completely, fix things later on for the second half of the season and go on some great run. And he thinks, actually, we've got this going again. And I really hope that they don't kind of have a false dawn end of the season run, miss the playoffs, but then he thinks, oh, yeah, we fixed it. We're all right. Because that, I don't think Russell Wilson will accept that. And I won't accept that either. I think it will be just a false dawn and it'll be a waste of everybody's time to carry on. But I think if it goes along this route, I think he will fall on his sword and retire. And Robbie, before I give you a chance, there is a super chat from Mike. Mike, thank you for your support and for your kind words. I'm sure the fellows as well really appreciate what you've said there. And Joe, so if PC did leave, who takes control of personal decisions, John Schneider or new head coach? That's a very good question, Joe. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure whether I'd be happy for John Schneider just to carry on or whether he deserves a chance to be essentially the main man on those decisions and get a head coach or pick his own head coach, whether it needs to be a complete clean sweep. But Robbie, you got something to add on what we discussed?
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I would say is even on the broadcast tonight, Mark Sanchez was talking about how he was talking to Pete Carroll and he's like, you just turned 70. When do you think about hanging it up? Can you go till 80 or whatever? And Pete was like, I'm on a 5-year plan. So I do 5 years. I'll figure it out after that. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere. I mean, maybe if we're really, really bad and, and there's no way around this team getting anywhere and he realizes it, then maybe he'd hang him up. But I just think he's too proud. I think he's a win every day, compete kind of guy. I think he's going to want to try to right the ship before he sails off into the sunset. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think we'll see a trade. I mean, unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but I think it's more likely that he'll trade Russ this offseason and try to fix it some other way. And I just don't see him going anywhere. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Pete.
I can't see it.
I don't know, man. And maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, and I hope you're right, to be honest, because I would rather.
I don't think he wants to be the guy who traded Russell Wilson and then it got worse. You know, because it's one thing.
3 more years, I think he thinks I think he believes he can still do it.
But if he walks away at the end of this season, people will remember the good days, I think, in time. But if he trades away Russell Wilson and then brings in a Matt Ryan type and they get worse, then people will just go, you were the guy who stayed too long, who got rid of the team's best ever quarterback, and he will be hated. And he's not a stupid guy. He knows what's at stake if he stays on and does all of that. So the only way I think he could possibly stay on is if there was some hint or suggestion that they could just carry on business as usual and they just need another year to go again. And
you don't think he's stubborn enough to believe that he can go out and get somebody else and turn this around?
I don't. I don't actually think he's stubborn. I think that he is. I think he's very aware, and I think that's why he considered, and I'm going to assume that Jay Glazer was right, considered retiring after 2017. And I think that he's given it a go, and I think he thought, do I want to do this? Yes, I do. And now he's done it. And the consequences are they ain't any better than they were essentially in 2018. So I do think he will fall on his sword. But then I think it's going to be interesting because the problem for the franchise is that they don't have proper leadership at the top. They have essentially an acting company in charge, and nobody knows. I want some answers there as well. You know, I want somebody either in the national media or in the local media to find out what the heck is going on with ownership. Are they not selling? You know, get somebody on the record, Jody Allen, or Chuck Arnold, whoever, to say what exactly the plan is for this ownership. Is it for sale? Is it not for sale? Are they thinking they're going to sell it 5 years down the line? You know, just get some answers. What exactly is the plan here? And it's not good enough to just sort of drift along and, well, Pete Carroll's here and it's convenient and John Schneider, just give them the keys, carry on with it. I want to know what's going on. I think fans have a duty to know what's going on. I mean, let me put this to you, Adam. I mean, if this was Spurs or any other team in English football, the fans would go, I want to know what's going on here. You know, the owner passes away, the family takes over essentially running the operations. The people, the company that the former owner was in charge of essentially just run the thing. You'd want to know, hang on a minute, what's going on? Seahawks fans have a duty, don't they, to know what's going on here and who to hold account.
I think that's a problem with, fair enough, when you talk about, you know, the football team I support, they had a man who was running things to the point that he was masking the lack of knowledge that the owners had in the sport. And then that makes life really easy for the owners because all they need to do is just sort of just keep it flowing. But eventually it's sport that stops. And I guess with Jody Allen, the same thing is, you know, 2018 when Paul sadly passes away, it's ultimately, it's clearly Pete Carroll's team. Everyone's happy. I mean, there wasn't really a murmuring about Pete Carroll and his job security in 2018. So for them, it's like, yeah, well, let's just keep him running the show. But unfortunately in sport, that will eventually run out. And so you end up with this vacuum of, we don't really know what the owner's doing. And we don't really know what the person who's acting as the de facto owner is doing. So we kind of, as fans, left, you know, with loads of fingers that we're waving around, and we're just desperate to try and land on something to point it at. And actually, it's quite frustrating, really, isn't it? Because you'd almost rather say, you know, Broncos, well, John Elway has been terrible for 4 years at drafting. You know, that's who's at fault. I kind of feel now that we're sort of flailing. We're not happy. And we're flailing, but we don't really know where to direct it. And that kind of makes it more frustrating, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I'll go back to what I said before. I think fans deserve to know a bit more about what the plan is here. Because there's been reports, Jason Lacanfora reported before Pete Carroll signed his contract extension a year ago, that essentially there was like, I think, a 5-year time scale on this, that they were planning on selling the team. And yet you hear about the Broncos because the Broncos are are in a situation where they're kind of family owned, I think, and there's a dispute about, you know, different elements of the family, I think, as to who exactly owns the team. There's talk of like Bezos getting involved. There's been talk of you know, Elway being part of some kind of consortium to buy the team or something. And you hear about that stuff, don't you? And you hear about other teams that could potentially get bought. But then it's gone very quiet with the Seahawks, very quiet. And I think fans need to know what's going on, because, you know, the Seahawks know as well as any franchise, really, that how important ownership is. From an owner who tries to move the team to Los Angeles to an owner who not only keeps the team in Seattle, but brings a championship to it that changes the complete outlook of the franchise, that stops it being a laughingstock and starts making it into a premier franchise. And the worry that I've got a little bit here is that if they just kind of drift along or flail, as you were putting it there, Adam, that what you'll find in a few years is that Pete will just go and there won't be any direction, and they'll just resort to being a pretty hopeless franchise again. And you're kind of then waiting for, well, another owner to come in or something to change. And then who knows what happens there? You know, who knows whether the right man takes over? Would you really want the guy who bought, for example, the Cleveland Browns to be running your franchise? Or would you want someone like Shad Khan at the Jaguars running your franchise? Not personally. And I'm a little bit concerned by this. I think it, you know, maybe we're branching off into a topic that is not for today, but for me, that direction, that fact that we can't just go, I think Pete Carroll should be under a bit of pressure here. I think that he should have to justify what's going on to an owner. But we just don't ever have that conversation. We just write it off completely because there's no accountability from the top. No one wants to criticize Jody Allen. No one wants to criticize Chuck Arnold. Everybody's kind of wondering, what do we do here? Are we stuck? Is this it? You know, we're talking about, well, Pete will decide whether he wants to carry on or not, as if it's all down to Pete, when really, should it just be down to Pete? I mean, if the Seahawks win 6 games this year, should it be down to Pete? Or should it be down to somebody else to go, that's enough. We need to make a big call here, and you need to go, and we need to make a change. What's going on with the franchise?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, right? I mean, we don't know anything about Jody Allen doesn't ever come out and say anything. You know, at least Paul Allen used to say things and used to, get a feel for kind of what he was trying to do. I have no idea where this organization is going at this point. And, it feels like it's Pete's organization, right? Does it not feel like it's like his show? I mean, it feels like he's the one running everything. I mean, and there's got to be some accountability on John Snyder as well. I mean, their drafting hasn't been good. I mean, LJ Collier, another healthy scratch tonight, didn't play. You've got all these players who are just not good enough for being where they've selected them in the first and second round. There's got to be some accountability all around for everybody involved, and it's got to start from the top. But we have just no direction for the team, so I have no idea. It's frustrating. It's a frustrating place to be.
And Marcus has put Chuck Arnold as the president through 2027. I think he's just signed a new contract. And they list him above Pete Carroll. But the only notable thing that I've seen Chuck Arnold do in the last few weeks is tweeting how great Q13 Fox's coverage of the Seahawks are as a media partner. I mean, come on. And frankly, I'm not sure that he should be the person having such a big sway on this. I mean, there needs to be somebody at the top. I've just seen this tweet from Greg Bell, guys. He's put, I've asked about what he and defense need to do to come up with big plays in the secondary. Trey Flowers answered, more film, more study, more ... And then he said, sadly, you all want me to be Sherman. I mean, this is where we're at now. I mean, this is essentially this is why the guy needs to be taken out of the firing line, because essentially his answer to a question of what does the he's like, well, you want me to be Richard Sherman and I can't be. Well, no, but at this point, you're not even Byron Maxwell. You're not even Walter Thurmond. I mean, he's not even Tharold Simon. Can I go any lower than that? I mean, it's just, I don't know. It feels like Adam. It feels like things are on the brink of imploding slightly. I've had this feeling with teams in the past, where things just start. I mean, and Wilson's going to be crucial here. What if Wilson suddenly starts to go, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I was flirting with the trade. And what if factions start to grow where you've got, Wilson and Carroll They already butted heads a little bit last week. Is that going to happen? Are you going to have sort of Wilson people and Carroll people? Is the team going to turn a little bit here? What are people going to start wondering why Carroll's sticking with Trey Flowers? Why he's moving in Cody Barton? Are we going to see a team that just ultimately falls apart a little bit? It's never happened under Carroll, has it? They've always found a way to bounce back. But for the first time, really, since the end of 2017, I'm thinking this could get really bad. This could get really bad.
There's probably a lot you can defend various factions of the roster building on, but when it comes to cornerback, I mean, yeah, we would love Trey Flowers to be Richard Sherman, but I find it hard to really point any blame at him for just not being that good. And 2 years ago, we knew he wasn't that good. And if you'd said to me 2 years ago, Trey Flowers would be starting cornerback in 2 years' time, you'd have laughed in their face, to be honest, wouldn't you? I mean, it'd be mad to even have that conversation. DJ Reed got absolutely worked by Justin Jefferson for that touchdown, which was an amazing route. Like, let's be like, not a lot, not many are going to stop that. But my podcast partner Stu texted me saying, like, you can see why Carroll just doesn't really fancy the small body cornerbacks because they can't do a lot. And they doubled down in the draft and they got another one. Keller Witherspoon comes in $5 million, traded away. There's a lot of that's circumstantial. They chose not to get KJ Wright, which it seemed like a weird thing they got themselves into, that they just weren't going to do it under any circumstances, but maybe they'd have been better off with him. But the cornerback situation is something that's so fuzzy that you'd love someone to give you an actual explanation on, this is how we thought we were going to build our cornerback room. This is how we did it and what we thought we were going to see. And this is where we are, because I'm actually pretty mystified by that, and it's now basically top 3 position of importance in the NFL, I would say, cornerback. And you can have all the defensive linemen in the world, but coverage sacks are so important these days. And they're not getting near anyone. I mean, the defensive line haven't really got a prayer, to be honest, because there's just no one covering anyone in the back end.
Yeah, certainly so. And I think it is a really important position, and they've just not done a good enough job there, have they? And I see little guys like Cam Hayward, bouncing around the league, and you think, just go and get somebody like that. At their very worst, you're going to get a base level of performance out of them, aren't you? I'll finish on this, guys. We've done an hour. Appreciate everybody who's been watching. This has been the most watched video we've ever done on a live stream. So thank you for following along and for having the interest. And thank you for all of the super chats. I've not given a shout out to everybody because we've been talking so much and trying to get through so many topics. I've not given everybody a shout out, but thank you for all the people who've done that. But I mean, I just want to finish on a thought. And if anybody in the comment section wants to join in on this as well, feel free. But I don't know how you guys feel, but game day always was a great day for me. In the week, I'd be sort of pining, almost wishing my life away. Get to Sunday, watch the Seahawks play. It would get me through some tough days at work. The thought of, are the Seahawks going to do this? Are they going to do that? What are the keys to the game? What are we going to see on a Sunday? There was just a bit of magic about the team under Carroll. And then on the Sunday, it would just be an exercise of counting down the hours to when the Seahawks kick off, whenever that was. And when the game would kick off, those are butterflies, at the excitement levels, the adrenaline rush that you would get of the Seahawks are kicking off. If you'd have said to me, what would you like to do, during the season? You can do anything. Money's no, I'd say, get me to Seattle, get me in that stadium. I used to go every year, 5,000-mile trip. Get me to Seattle at great expense. I've got to go and watch the team. And frankly, I've got a losing record watching the Seahawks. I'm not taking any blame for that. I do not believe I'm a jinx. But when I would get there and I would just want to be there. And I lived every minute. Bad results would make me feel horrible for the whole week. I would not stop thinking about it. Ask my wife. I am in a foul mood when a team that I am following closely have a bad result. And all of that has gone. I had no excitement for the game today. I had no angst while watching it. I was laughing at frankly. People in the comment section have been going, do the skull thing again. Like I say, I was doing that. I was just sort of laughing. I was following Red Zone a little closer than usual. The excitement, the anticipation, the adrenaline, all gone. I am not in a bad mood and will not wake up in a bad mood tomorrow, apart from the fact that it's already nearly 2:00 in the morning here, and I've got to take the kids to school first thing in the morning. All of that has gone. Like, it's just the luster of following this Seahawks team for me has disappeared. There's no energy. There's no spark. There's nothing special about this team. I'm not afraid to say that when I'm watching some of these players, I'm actually irritated by them. The old team, that 2011, 12, 13, 14 team, there's nobody I'd rather want representing the Seahawks. Cam, Marshawn, Richard, Earl, Russ, Doug Baldwin, the guys, you were proud to sort of follow them. I find a lot of the Seahawks players annoying at the moment. And, their personalities, their playing styles, what they're delivering. I don't see the direction they've gone in terms of roster building. I don't like the way they've built the team. I'm not excited about them anymore. And I need something to essentially jolt my fandom back into life. I need something that's going to make me care and feel again about this team. And I can't be the only one who feels that way. And you don't need that. Look, you're always going to be a fan. I'm never going to stop following the Seahawks, and I'll watch every game this year. Some of them kick off, Adam, as you will be well aware, at 1:20 in the morning. And I'll still be there watching every game, even at that time in the morning. I will not miss one. But the magic is going. It feels like the end of an era is nigh.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I wasn't really. I think the thing is, you just don't know what to expect with this team, right? I mean, there's nothing that you're like, I really want to see this today, or this player come out and do something. It's just kind of like, yeah, I don't really know. And I was excited though. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still got fired up. When DK caught the ball and was running across the field and he buried his shoulder down, I was like standing and cheering and getting all amped up, but. It felt like an inevitable once they just couldn't get the ball moving again and everything. You kind of just sit back. And I mean, I wasn't at your level where I was just laughing, but I was just more just kind of like shaking my head. Like, yeah, no, this is a good way to say it right here. I just felt numb to it. Like, I've seen this before. I know what's going to happen. And you just don't get excited about it. It's frustrating.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got the situation where we have to watch it via Game Pass, and I don't think it helps sort of being on the couch with a laptop, on slight delay, and especially with a Mark Sanchez 3.5 hours for late show of Kirk Cousins, which was some of the more bizarre commentary I've heard in a long time. I think the check must be in the post from
he's a stone cold executioner, Adam.
Top 10. I mean, there was some remarkable. It was almost worth watching that just to listen to Mark Sanchez. But I'm going to the San Francisco game in December, and I can't wait to go to Seattle, the social, be there. But yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like I need a game to reboot me. I think the London game was a terrific reboot for a lot of people after a fairly down year in 2017. And I also go normally once a year. Obviously, couldn't go last year, and I do find that often that does give it a bit of a jolt, because it can be a bit tiresome watching these games at 1:30 in the morning or on a laptop, and it's hard to really get that up for it, and you're not making too much noise because my wife hates sport and doesn't understand what the hell I'm doing. So it does have slightly weird, it's slightly different than being in a room with your mates. But yeah, I wonder if we're just sort of going through the peaks and troughs of fandom, and in a way it's sort of the dull times that make the good times so good. But especially it's not always easy to see the peaks when you're in a trough. But yeah, it's pretty rough at the minute, isn't it? It's it doesn't appear to carry the same weight of interest. And I think something, Robbie, that you'll know better. You'll know the city better than Rob and I will. But if you look at what happens with the Mariners, they're getting 15,000 people even right now, and they're looking close to maybe making the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. I think the Seahawks would be wise to realize that, yeah, the 12s thing and the full stadiums, that's great, but it's 2021, and people will very soon find other things to occupy themselves with, especially in a town like Seattle, which is, full of different cultures and people that have come from there. A lot of people will go to Seattle to a game for a day out that won't necessarily be fans. I think a lot of people say that the atmosphere is maybe not quite what it was now, that it was a few years ago, and they'd be very wise not to not to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, or whatever it's called, because people will run out of patience and find something else to do, because it's 2021. and eventually they will do. Yeah, the hockey team, as someone's saying now. That would be the biggest thing that I'd be worried about if I was the ownership, that people, what if Russell Wilson goes and they have a Andy Dalton type quarterback for 4 or 5 years, that stadium will not be full, because that's just the way that the world spins on its axis now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. I mean, not only with hockey, the Sounders, the Storm, I mean, the way the Mariners are playing around, the Mariners got an up-and-coming team right now, very exciting. I think people are really excited about the future of this team. I mean, I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, but I mean, they're well on the way to being, a good team for years to come. And there's a lot of talk about the NBA bringing the Sonics back. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways that, that Seattle fans can go to get their sports fix, and it doesn't have to be the Seahawks. And if somebody said something about Jim Mora, I remember that season. I sat at every single game in the stadium and watched this play like crap. And you remember that transition time between, Hasselbeck to clipboard Jesus and Jackson and Tavares Jackson and stuff. And it was still loud, but man, you just still want to like be in that stadium, in that atmosphere. There's nothing like it, so you want to keep that mojo as much as you can.
Yeah. The thing about the Mora season was I feel somewhat, I don't feel as bad about this season as I did that, because that looked like the fear about the Mora season was always, this is the start and they might well give him time to continue this, SHIT show. And it was spiraling out of control and all that. And I can remember the media going, they're not going to fire him. They're not going to fire him. They're not going to get rid of him after one season. That's not how this franchise does things. Not how Paul Allen does things. And that was the great thing, was that he just did it. This isn't going anywhere. And I can remember it was yesterday. I was at work. I was back in the job that I'm in now. And I was back there and I was sat at my desk. And this was before Twitter. And I used to have a little roto thing on my old blog. And it just popped up. The Seahawks are set to appoint Pete Carroll as head coach to replace Jim Mora. And that popped up like straight after they'd fired him. And I was like celebrating in the office, like, yes, this is exciting. I like this move. Straight away I was like, I'm interested. I'm invested in how this is going to work out. And it feels like they need something like that again, just something that's going to get everybody excited again and jolt everybody into life. And I want to see that. And I've already said that my preference, I think, would be somebody like Joe Brady, with a very experienced head coach. And people may want to trade Russell Wilson and do all of that stuff. And it's very hard. I would rather, bleed the Russell Wilson starting quarterback situation out before trading him. And I think let's have at least a season with him with an offensive-minded head coach before you just give up on that, because it's the hardest thing in the world to replace a quarterback or to find a franchise quarterback. Just ask the Jets and the Jaguars and all of those hopeless teams who are trying to do that now, or the Bears, who've had like no franchise quarterbacks for decades. So that's about as far as we're going to go. We've done 1 hour and 10. Listen, guys, I appreciate your time, especially you, Adam, because like me, it's very early in the morning here, and you've had a particularly disappointing sporting day with Spurs. So my sympathies with you for that, and appreciate your time.
I'm coming off mute just to acknowledge that I'm alive, but I'm not coming off mute to comment on that in any way. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Robbie, appreciate your time as well. Thank you to everybody who's watched along. Thank you for the super chats. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You will not miss a single video. As you can see, we talk about things that a lot of other places, they just don't talk about them. And we just get into it and we have those discussions, and we will continue to do that. So subscribe to the video. Check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Plenty of articles on there that you'll want to read from the week, including an instant reaction post. You can watch this back as well on there. Not a good day for the Seahawks, but we'll be back again to talk about it in the week. Until then, see you next time.